Welcome to Everyday Soul, a podcast about balancing real life and real growth.
Yeah. Everyday Soul. Everyday Soul.
Hey there, friends, it's Cynthia. Welcome to the very first episode of Everyday Soul. Just a little about our podcast. Each month we'll be bringing to you uplifting topics and scintillating conversations with real people just like you and me who are balancing real life with real growth. In this episode, we're talking about creativity because our souls yearn to create. Whether it's deciding what to wear in the morning or painting a masterpiece, you're creating. My first guest is a man who uses his creative talents to earn a living, to grow his soul, and he's inspired me time and time again with his fearless attitude about being true to himself. I think you're going to be inspired by him too. And his name is Rob Holmes. All right, Rob, I've got us on now, and I want to welcome you to the very first episode of Everyday Soul. How are you doing?
I'm doing real well. How are you?
I'm really great. It's great to be with you, and thank you for being here to have this conversation.
And thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be a part of this.
I am too. I met you, let's just get right to the history here. I met you, 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago.
And I had this vision, this idea for a business, and I needed a website, a concrete thing in which I could put out my ideas, and you made it happen for me. You designed my website.
Your website I am very proud of, and I show a lot of people your website when I'm doing business. So yeah, it's a wonderful website.
Well, let's just let everybody know that you are a digital designer, right?
Yes, correct.
And your work, your focus is mainly website design.
I do. My main focus is website design. I do a lot of graphic design. I also do some art, and I also have surprisingly photography business
erupting. And this is why I want to talk to you, because I love your journey, how you moved into then your own business, doing what you love, and then this other thing that has happened in your life, this photography thing. Yeah. You're like a super guy on Instagram now.
Yeah.
Following you at, is it Holmes Design?
The website is Our Holmes Designs.
Our Holmes Design. We're going to put all this information in the box there below that everybody will be able to find you after this. But anyway, I want to begin by asking you, where do you find your inspiration? Because this is a podcast about finding your joy, finding balance and harmony in your life. And where is this coming in for you?
It's sort of a tough question for me because I don't sometimes understand exactly how things come into play. I have to sit down and realize that I'm always starting with a white piece of paper, essentially, a blank piece of paper. And for me to create something off a white piece of paper is, as far as, designing something, is so much easier than for me actually having to try to write something down on a white piece of paper. And my mom always used to tell me, I come from a creative family. And so my mom was always, creativity starts with a blank piece of paper. Wow. My dad was always one of those people that during dinner, I know this is going off on a tangent, but during dinners, like out to keep us occupied as kids, he would actually he still does this with my kids too. He takes a piece of paper and draws a line on it and says, what can you make out of that? And so we would end up like making whatever came to our minds off of that. And so that instantly cured the blank piece of paper idea. And so that there's nothing there. There's always something there. It's just what you see.
I like this idea of this white piece of paper because and how you then are just like beginning again every day, right? It's not like you're trying to recreate or reinvent. It's always fresh and new, and that's hard for most people. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's still sort of a tough question because what gets me is I do some exploratory work online. I look at what other people have done, try to pull out other ideas, and most designers typically do that. They look for inspiration through other designers. What do they see around them, and then what are they seeing? How to incorporate that, and I would always, kind of stare at it for a little while and then just start playing around with something. And from where I started to where I ended up was completely different. And sometimes, well, actually, 99% of the time, I actually look at it and go at a finished work and go, I have no idea how I got there.
So what
But
I'm
I got
hearing-
there, which is...
that is the creative process, right?
Yeah.
If we are willing to let it flow, right? And
Right.
let it out. But this is interesting because you mentioned this not being aware of how you got there, almost like you had a loss of sense of time. And when you're working on something like that, did you feel, and do you often feel like there's something guiding you, something intangible?
I'm not sure I know 100% on that, but I do know that once I start playing around with shapes or images or the font or whatever it might be, and typically that's what I start out with. What's a good font for this? What make it appeal to people? What's gonna go with the theme of the actual poster or brochure or whoever it's for? And sometimes clients are wanting certain things.
And I'm sure they let you know loud and clear.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they
oh
are.
yeah. People are very specific about what they want.
It's so interesting to me to hear you speak about it because I'm getting this image of you as actually like a creative technician, which is a cool way of looking at things because I never really think of creativity as far as it applies in my life to something that has pieces that fit together. To me, it's just like one big surge of energy, and I don't know where it's going, but I love the process that you use, which is actually perfect for somebody working in digital marketing because
Right.
it is about the layering
Yeah.
of the content.
Exactly.
And what's the most important thing. And it's really cool to hear you talk that way. It seems like you appreciate the value of your work so much and that you feel confident in it. How do you get to that space? Because you could help us all a lot here, Rob, if you could just give us a golden ticket.
Yeah. The confidence comes in being kind of true to yourself. I know what I like, and I believe what I do. When I produce something on paper or on screen or whatever it might be, that it's going to come out really good and people are going to like it. That's just the confidence I have in that. And there's few times that I've had people be very negative towards my work. That's okay because I quickly realized that we're just not a fit. What they're looking for is completely, somebody to do something different than the way I would actually do things. And I'm okay with that.
One thing that is also shockingly amazing to me is your complete conviction in what you're putting on that blank white piece of paper or, your screen or whatever. Because to me, that's the hardest thing that most people, when they're trying to bring forth these treasures of whatever they have to share, it's hard for them to find that courage to know what is right.
Right.
And, there's lots of reasons why we all have fears, like fear of somebody not liking it. It's the unknown, not knowing, am I capable of doing this job? Or what advice do you have for someone who wants to follow their dreams and their hidden treasures and unearth them, but there's that fear inside again?
Yeah, so there's the fear, and I've dealt with that fear multiple times. And my first job that I did actually, I think it was the first time I was doing a work for somebody on the side. It was my first side hustle, and I remember I was sat there and I looked at what I did, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really proud of this, but I am terrified to send this to the person. I was so afraid they were going to attack it and they were going to this and that. It took me an hour to push that button. I almost didn't send it because I was just so terrified, but I sent it. And they came back and they loved it, and they said, we just have a couple of revisions, and which was fine. And that quickly made me realize to have kind of a thick skin to it because, people have revisions. They have their idea on top of what your idea is, and it's got to be okay.
And you have had the courage to bring it all out there every step of the way. And guess what? It has fulfilled and, strengthened your journey, I think, and given you probably more of that courage and confidence to keep going and keep following these little synchronicities, these nudges that you're getting. And
yeah, it's really interesting because the more these little things happen, the more confidence it builds.
It's like a river. It's just like it just flows stronger and stronger, these creative energies. And so then to the question, what advice do you have for somebody who has just this wonderful thought, this idea, but they are thinking, oh man, somebody else has done that before, or I'm going to be so vulnerable if I put myself out there.
Right.
It's like there's so many ways that we tell ourselves no. How can you help somebody find that word yes?
You know, Nike said it best, or Nike said it best. Just do it. Literally, you just do it.
Good
There's
advice.
so many, if I look at the amount of people that take photography out there, there's a lot of people. And you know what? There are a lot of people that are better than I am. And
Just depends on what somebody wants to look at, don't you think?
see, that's exactly the thing, though. But the way I go into that approach is like, oh my God, this has already been done. Somebody's already doing this. This is, you could mess with your mind as much as you want there. But if you just sit there and say, you know what, I like to do it. And if I'm getting people that want me to take a picture, I never say no. There's very rarely when a job comes around do I say no. But I also try to be honest with people on where I am with things. And I actually just step out there and I start doing it. And the other thing too is thank God for the age of information that we're in, because it makes things a lot easier. I'm on the first photo shoot I went out to, I did a big family. They wanted me to come out, and they had a little family reunion, and I think there were like 30 of them.
That's a big one.
It was a big one. And so I just actually told them initially, I actually looked online, watched a couple YouTube videos, talked to a couple people I know, but if you don't know anybody, there's YouTube. And so and then I went out, and I decided the best way to do this was kind of on an editorial concept. So I guess initially just got them comfortable in front of a camera, took them a bunch of pictures of them, and then started kind of staging them. And I actually read about that too. How do you get people to interact, and what's the best way, and how do you pull somebody out? And a lot of times it's me just trying to comfort them.
Yeah. And by staying open and curious yourself, I think you're able to kind of let it flow as it comes, right? You don't have a rigid set way you're going to do it. You just kind of let it happen.
Another person wanted me to take pictures of their sons, and so I had them standing. They're both watermen, and so I actually had this one. I was
the
like,
mermen.
Yeah, they're men. They're tall boys. They're in college, and so I actually just said, hey, why don't you grab that board and just come over here? And I had them in all these different kind of places, and I just kind of threw out there, why don't you kneel down and then just put the board across your lap? I know it might be uncomfortable, but just see how that looks. And that's the picture that came out, and it just sort of me just kind of being random.
Yeah, I saw that post. It was like an iconic kind of a feel to it. Like the guy holding the surfboard instead of the board holding the guy.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And it just was really, those pictures, just sometimes they come about.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
So.
I find it so interesting, too, that you come from creative parents. What did your parents do?
Well, my parents, my mother was an interior designer, and she actually got a lot of her talents from her mother, who was an editor at House and Garden magazine.
Oh, very cool. I remember that. Man, that's an oldie.
Yeah, it's an oldie, yes. Back in the day, it was the thing to be a part of. But she definitely had a creative flair to her. And as a kid, actually, when I was in college, they had went out and bought a place out in Palm Springs. And so when I would go home, she'd be like, hey, just so you know, I painted the bathroom black. And she didn't just paint the bathroom black, she painted the entire bathroom black.
That's
or
awesome.
She go, I knocked a wall out, and we're going to have a jacuzzi room. I'd come home, and she'd be taking straw and stuffing it up on this kitchen ceiling and different things like this. My dad is an artist. His family is full of artists. His uncle, which would be my grandfather's brother, studied at the Sorbonne. And my dad is just a super creative artist and was always talking to us about art and doing art with us. And it's kind of where both those people is where I got my exploratory nature, I guess you'd say.
You definitely
So,
came from
yeah.
a line of makers
Yes.
and doers.
Yeah.
And was there any kind of black sheep in the family? Somebody who just could not get those creative juices flowing,
There is a black sheep, but not creativity.
I see.
My brother is the black sheep. He kind of went in the direction of drugs and things like that. But he's also the most creative. Actually, it's sad to see somebody with that much talent kind of go to waste.
Don't you find that super just expansive psychedelic synapses firing with all that energy?
Yeah.
It can sometimes go toward their detriment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at what Picasso has been putting out there, and it's wild and this and that. His mind was way different than everybody else's in how he viewed people and how he viewed things, and it's literally taking that and trying to figure out what you're viewing and what you're thinking and placing that on a piece of paper.
And keeping your sanity,
and
right?
keeping your sanity, and not everybody's sane. It is funny that I've had some dark times in my life, and I found some of the creativity that I put out was very out there during that time.
We all have these, dark night of the soul.
Right.
And I know that you've mentioned to me just, in a very kind of compassionate way that you have struggled with addiction yourself. And,
Yeah.
And anyway, to me, that is just such an inspiration how you have overcome. And I guess it is a daily practice, right? To keep on that path of
It's
purity.
a 24-hour deal, and more or less it's just a matter of making sure that you have a stronger spiritual contact. You're in line with essentially with the universe, and you are just doing what you need to do during those each 24 hours that are going to keep you away from whatever your addiction might be, and it's a process. So,
Man, I really respect you.
Yeah,
I really do.
thank you.
I
Thank
mean
you very
that.
much.
And hey, good luck and best wishes to your brother out there. I
Yeah,
hope he's doing good right now.
He's okay. Yeah.
Don't you think now, looking back, that perhaps there, in all of our big decisions and the choices that we make in our lives, we're getting help out there, don't you think?
I actually always think about that, and I love the topic that you just brought up there, because we could go on that one forever for me. But I look back at everything, and every stage of my life has happened, in my view, for a purpose, and it's guided me to where I am today. And
what is that purpose, Rob?
the purpose is to be my own individual and to be me. That's my purpose. I want to be in love with a job that I show up to every day, even though I walk 10 feet over to my office from my bedroom, but I love that part of it too. I want to be, a good person, but I'm a good worker. I'm a good friend. I'm a good father. I'm a good, human being to my ex-wife, Those kind of things are what I want to be, and it's hard to be that when you're not free.
I love hearing you and your words about authenticity, because when I was deciding, okay, who do I want to have a conversation with? It's Rob Holmes. It was because
Thank you.
You're totally authentic, and that is a thing, with all of the social media. It's really hard to find people that are still just doing and being who they are.
Right.
You do that very well.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, thank you for inspiring us with that, because, we always think we have to be a certain way, or there are expectations maybe from our upbringing, our past, whatever. But really, when you dial into the joy that you get from being who you are, you're like a superpower, I think. What do you think? Is it something that resonates with you? Like you feel, like you say, free?
It's a nice thing to realize that there shouldn't be fear with something that there's nothing there, and you just start working, one piece at a time, one step at a time.
That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
So,
Well, Rob, I just want to thank you for your beautiful talents and gifts and how you inspire us all to share ours.
thank you. For
And it's really
having me.
cool being friends with you and having
Yeah.
you be my continual support system for my digital
Of course.
marketing projects. And I want to end our conversation by, since this is a podcast about, again, finding that harmony and that balance, I want you to describe to us how and where you were the last time you felt that highest degree of happiness.
Wow.
Or this place that you were when you felt like the flow was with you and you had this sense of complete, I'm doing it.
I have to think about that for a couple
That's
seconds.
fine. We can edit this. We can fix it.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
we can take it out.
Good.
Or if you don't want to answer the question, you
No,
don't have
I
to.
do, but it's one of those that, trying to pinpoint that point where I'm like, just know that I'm where I'm supposed to be and what I'm doing. I think it was probably a couple months ago, to be honest with you. And, this probably has happened to me several times throughout my life. I live in La Jolla. I have a lot of friends that surf along with myself. The NC Surf Club was having their big fall event. But I was down there and I started taking some photos and a bunch of friends around me. And, as I was taking the photos, people started coming up to me and like, oh, hey, this is my color. Make sure you get a couple photos of me. And here's and it was just one of those where I was, in a beautiful place with a lot of friends doing something I love to do. And it's those things that are that simple.
You were a part of it.
Yeah,
You weren't just
yeah.
observing it.
Yeah, it's like being around family on Thanksgiving. You're all eating, you're all having a good time for the most part. It's not. There's no gifts. There's no nothing. It's all just people being together. So,
you've got me right now in this energy of peace. Just listening to those two scenarios, I totally get it, and I totally get you. And I'm so happy that you came here today. And I want to thank you for being my first guest on this podcast.
I'm really glad to be here. And I'm actually so excited that you're doing this. And again, talk about taking something and just doing it.
We're running with it, babe.
You're running with a podcast. I mean, we're on the same plane here, definitely. You're doing it.
Well, it all comes
is
down
great.
to that, again, that question. Do you want to live your life in fear?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just,
Yeah.
like you said, just take that next step and put it out there
Yeah.
and just do it?
Yeah.
So
Just do it.
anyway, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
Sure.
Everyday show. Everyday show.
Our Everyday Soul music was written and performed by the talented REESE Taylor. For more information on REESE's music, check out the description box below.